Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to Movie Goodness, where we examine life through cinema here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and today is a different kind of show. You know, traditionally, of course, you can see the title of this show is Movie Goodness, so we normally talk movies that relate to the subject of the day, and we cross it up with a review and all that good stuff to kind of break the levity, you know, especially in heavy topics. I like to kind of ease the tension by discussing a movie that's related to the topic that we're talking about, but something that's not as heavy. Well, today we don't have a movie. We're not going to do a movie review. I had some movies in the chamber for this topic, but I said, no, we're going to focus on the topic and the topic alone because this is important. This is important, not just for Americans, but for everybody, for every human being walking God green earth. And this is election season. We all know. We know that the presidential election is later this year, and there's a lot of issues and topics that in policies that will be affected by this election. That's going to affect not only you, but your children, your grandchildren, your great grandchildren. It all stems from, and that's every election. It's not just this one. It's every election. But this one here kind of blew my mind because I didn't know anything about Project 2025. I heard about it, but I really didn't pay it much mind because I was like, well, it doesn't matter because I'm not voting for that. But I know a lot of people probably don't even know what it is, just like me. So I had to do research, just like everybody else should do. But in case you haven't, I decided that today I was going to dedicate an episode to break down what Project 2025 is, because it is something that everybody should be made aware of, no matter what side of the fence you're on, whether you're Republican or Democrat, conservative or liberal, whatever, black or white, it doesn't matter. You need to know what this is. You need to know what this is. You need to know exactly what's on the docket, that's coming up. And when I read up on this, I was like, man, this cannot be, this has to be a joke. This has to be some type of ruse or some things happen in life where you're like, okay, it's you hear it on the news or you see it on the internet or whatever the case may be, and you're like, man, this is a joke. It's not real. That'll never happen. Famously, I remember the day Donald Trump announced he was running for president the first time. I remember it like it was yesterday because I was at my parents' house and my father was still alive. And it came on the news and he looked at it. And my dad, he was like, this ain't real. He's joking. There's no way he's running for president. This can't be real. Nobody in their right mind is going to vote for that man. That was my dad's words. Now, depending on how you look at it, fortunately or unfortunately, my dad passed away before the election happened. And so he didn't get to see that glorious day when Donald Trump won. And, and so I don't know how to look at it. I miss my dad every day. I hate the fact that he's gone. He didn't get to see a lot of things that happened in my life, in his grandchildren's life, and so on and so forth after his passing. But it's one thing that I am so happy that he did not get to witness, and that was Donald Trump winning in that election. Because if cancer didn't take him out, that would have took him out. So either way it went, I don't think my father would have been around because he was adamant. He was adamant, man, this is a joke, but it happened. I said all that to say this. Just because you think something sounds ridiculous, there's no way that's going to get passed. There's no way that's going to get voted on. There's no way that person is going to win this election, and on and on and on. Trust me, it can happen. It can happen. And so I'm going to run down the whole policy of Project 2025 in hopes of all of you who don't know what it is, don't know how it's going to affect you or somebody you love, that you would know. And this isn't, I struggled with it because I don't want this to turn into a political show. I do talk about politics, I do talk about certain things political on this show, but I don't want this to turn to CNN or Fox News and all that there. I just want to talk about pressing issues in our country, in our world, and you know, you decide either way. I'm not here to sway your decision anyway. I'm not going to try to boost up anybody on this show, sway your vote in any way. I just want to keep everybody informed, and since I have this platform, I want to use it for good, and this is the good I'm going to use it for. So let's break down the Project 2025 proposal, policy proposal, or whatever. Now, this isn't to be confused with the Agenda 47, because a lot of when I was doing my research, there was a lot of linking up with the two, and they're two different things. Their similarities. They're similarities. They're coming from the same side, but they're two different things. See, the Agenda 47, that's a package that Donald Trump is presenting. That's a proposal that if he wins, he's going to implement. And the reason is Agenda 47, because if he wins, he'll be the 47th president. But Agenda 47 is what Donald Trump 2024 presidential campaign calls their formal policy plans. According to the Trump campaign, it is the only official detailed look at what President Trump will do if he returns to the White House. It is presented on the campaign website, and it has a series of videos with Trump outlining each proposal and whatnot. I didn't look at it because I know I said I don't talk about candidates and political view, but I can't stand Trump. That's just, I don't care if he was a Democrat. I don't care for Trump, and I'm not a Democrat either. So take that with what you will. But some of Agenda 47 videos, they respond to current events around early 2023. Now, the proposals appear to be aimed towards Republican primary voters and slowed down once his primary lead grew in April of 2023, to the point where Philip Bump wrote in the Washington Post in June of 2024 that neither Trump nor his campaign regularly brings up the plan. In 2023, Trump campaign officials acknowledged the Project 2025 aligned well with Agenda 47. Project 2025 has, as of June of 2024, just the last month, reportedly caused some annoyance in Trump's campaign, which had historically preferred fewer and more policy proposals to limit opportunities for criticism to maintain flexibility. One example of a policy recommendation that is found in both the Agenda 47 and Project 2025 is the promise of reissuing Executive Order 13957, which is a job classification in the expanded service of the United States Federal Civil Service that exists briefly at the end of the Trump administration during 2021, 2020 and 2021. It would have contained policy related positions, removing their civil service protections and making them easier to fire. It would it was never fully implemented, and no one was appointed to it before it was repealed at the beginning of the Biden administration. Now, back to Agenda 47. The plans include constructing freedom cities on empty federal land, investing in flying car manufacturing, introducing baby bonuses to encourage a baby boom, implementing trade policies, and over 40 other changes. 17 of the policies that Trump says he wants to implement will require congressional approval. Some of his plans are legally controversial, if that makes any sense. For example, such as ending birthright citizenship and may require amending the Constitution itself. Many of the proposals are contentious. One Agenda 47 proposal would impose the death penalty on drug dealers and human traffickers, as well as place Mexican cartels on the United States list of foreign terrorist organizations. Trump also suggests deporting or deploying, I should say, the National Guard into inner cities with high crime rates. And so that's the gist of Agenda 47. Now, swinging over to Project 2025, it is it's more in depth. It is more stuff to this than what meets the eye. Project 2025 is a collection of conservative and right-wing policy proposals from the Heritage Foundation to reshape the United States federal government and consolidate executive powers should the Republican nominee, who we all assume is Donald Trump, was to win the 2024 presidential election. The project assessed that the entire executive branch is under the direct control of the president under Article 2 of the United States Constitution. It proposes reclassifying tens of thousands of federal civil service workers as political appointees in order to replace them with loyalists, more willing to be or enable the next Republican president's policies. In doing so, proponents argue that the change would dismantle what they view as a vast, unaccountable, and most liberal government bureaucracy. The project seeks to infuse the government and society with Christian values. Many legal experts have said it would undermine the rule of law, the separation of powers, the separation of church and state, and civil liberties. Project 2025 envisions widespread change to the government, particularly economy and social policies, and the role of the federal government and its agencies. The plan proposed taking partisan control of the DOJ, which is the Department of Justice, the FBI, the Department of Commerce, the FCC, and the Federal Trade Commission, dismantling the Department of Homeland Security, and sharply reducing environmental and climate control regulations in favor of fossil fuels production. In addition to trying to undo mostly everything that the Biden administration has put into place, Project 2025 recommends abolishing the Department of Education, whose programs would be either transferred to other agencies or terminated completely. Funding to climate research would be cut, and the National Institute of Health would be reformed according to the conservative principles. The project seeks to cut funding to Medicare and Medicaid and urge the government to explicitly reject abortion as health care. The project seeks to eliminate coverage of emergency contraceptive under the Affordable Care Act and enforce the Comstocks Act to persecute those who send and receive contraceptives and abortion pills nationwide. It proposes criminalizing pornography, removing legal protections against discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity, and terminating the DEI, which is diversity, equality, and inclusion programs, as well as affirmative action, to throw that in there, by having the DOJ persecute anti-white racism. The project recommends the arrest, detention, and deportation of undocumented immigrants living in the United States by using the military to capture and place them in internment camps. The project proposes deploying the military for domestic law enforcement. It promotes capital punishment and the speedy finality of those sentences. And finality is in quotations. You can't see it because microphone, but basically deadly force. Some conservatives and Republicans have criticized the plan for its stance on climate control and foreign trade. Other critics believe Project 2025 is window dressing for what would be 4 years of personal vengeance at any cost. The project's authors acknowledge that most of the policies would require the Republican Party to control both the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate. Some aspects of the plan have recently been ruled unconstitutional by the Supreme Court and would face court challenges, while others are norm-breaking policies that may survive court challenges. Although Project 2025 cannot, by law, promote a specific presidential candidate, many contributors have close ties to Donald Trump and his 2024 presidential campaign. Now, in a strange plot twist, on July the 5th, Trump publicly distanced himself from Project 2025, saying he knew nothing about it and that some of its ideas were ridiculous. Whatever. Trump's claims were dismissed by some critics who pointed to the involvement of figures close to Trump to the project. Now, him trying to distance himself from it comes days after the Heritage Foundation president, Kevin Roberts, suggested in an interview that there would be a second American Revolution, which was criticized by Democrats and others for containing what they viewed as a vile threat of violence. The project has employed warlike rhetoric and apocalyptic language in describing a battle plan to regain control of the government. Now, let's run down some of these policies. I'm not going to go through them all. But these are some of the policies that just blows my mind. It really makes you think, like, where are we at? Is this really, did we go back in times at some point? Because this is the most ridiculous stuff I have ever heard. But it's so ridiculous that it might just come to fruition. That's how ridiculous this stuff is. Let's start off with the big daddy, in my humble opinion, and that is the Christian nationalism. Now, this is crazy to me because nothing here is Christian like. There's nothing about any of this that screams Christian. But as the leader of the Center of Renewing America, Project 2025 contributor Russell Vought has spearheaded an effort to instill precepts of Christian nationalism into government and public life should Trump win a second term. In a 2021 opinion piece, Vought wrote that Christian nationalism recognizes America as a Christian nation and makes a commitment to the institution of separating church and state, which is kind of crazy to me, but not the separation of Christianity from its influence on government and society. According to Vault, Christians are under assault, and he sought to use his regular contacts with Trump to elevate Christian nationalism as a focal point should Trump be reelected as president. Vault has close ties to another former Trump administration officer, William Wolf, who, in an outline manifesto, seeks to implement a Bible-themed system of government whereby Christian-oriented civil magistrates exercise authority over the American public. Now, look, this makes no sense to me. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't this country come to fruition when the Pilgrims or whatever came over here, stole the land, mind you, came over here and wanted to worship freely the way they wanted to worship? That was the whole point. That was their mission statement. And so if that's what this country was built on, that people can worship how they want to worship if they choose to worship, why now is it all of a sudden a mandated religion here? I don't understand it. Or why they trying to implement a mandate. And I know I said I weren't going to do any commentary, but this is stupid. this is the dumbest thing ever. And I consider myself a Christian, and so I don't agree with this at all. It stems back to a show I did about a month or so ago about here in Louisiana that our idiot governor wrote into law that all schools, all public schools from kindergarten all the way through to college have to post the 10 Commandments in the classroom. I knew then that was a slippery slope, and that was the start of this foolishness. And I'm like, why? What sense that make? And the same argument I had for that, I'm having for this. You can't tell people who to worship and how to worship. That's not how that works. Jesus didn't do that. So who are you? It's just mind-boggling to me. Mind-boggling. But they claim to be Christians. And so, I'm not here to judge, but not very Christian-like, sir. Another policy that I wanted to chat up a little bit is the climate change policy. Now, you have to be living under a rock or high on cocaine 24/7 not to realize that there is a serious problem with the climate here. There's a serious issue going on. The weather is out of control. You having earthquakes where you never had earthquakes before. You're having tornadoes where you never had tornadoes before. Hurricanes are hitting in areas that they never hit before at a rapid pace. This is a very active season that they said. We're just coming off the heels of, I forgot the name of the thing, but it hit Texas last week. There's the heat. Jesus, the heat. It is hot here in Louisiana. It feels like summer is year round. As of late, it's constantly hot, and it's in the triple digits almost. See, I can't even talk. It's so hot. It is always hot. Like right now, I'm recording this episode. A little peek behind the curtain. I'm recording this episode. It's looking over here. It's 12:15 at night, midnight, and I'm looking at the thermometer, and it is 83 degrees. What? What? But you have these yahoos that's telling me that has nothing to do with climate change. Now, Project 2025 advised a future Republican president to go further than merely nullifying current president Joe Biden's executive order of climate change. It proposes abandoning strategies for reducing greenhouse gases emissions responsible for climate change, downsizing the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, and abolishing the National uh, Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which the project calls one of the main drivers of the climate change alarm industry. Yeah, I would think so because that's their job. The other big bugaboo for me here, out of many, is education and research. Um, this hits home for me because my youngest daughter is a school teacher. You know, she's graduating from college next year to be a school teacher. So whenever I hear education, my antenna goes up. And so the major concern with Project 2025 is what it calls woke propaganda in public schools. In response, it envisions a dramatic reduction in the federal government's role in education and elevation of school choices and parents' rights. For Project 2025, education should be left to the states. To achieve that goal, it proposes eliminating the Department of Education and allowing states to opt out of federal programs and standards. The federal government, according to the Project 2025, should be no more than a statistics keeping organization when it comes to education. Federal enforcements of civil rights in school would be significantly curtailed, and such responsibilities would be transferred to the Department of Justice. But the DOJ would be able to enforce the law only through litigation. The federal government would no longer investigate schools for signs of disparate impacts of disciplinary measures on the basis of race and ethnicity. A federal fund worth 18 billion, $18 billion for low income students would be allowed to expire. And those responsibilities will devolve to the states. Public funds for education would be available as school vouchers with no strings attached, even for parents sending their children to private or religious schools. Free school meals and Head Start programs would be eliminated. For the project's backers, education for a private rather than a public good. Project 2025 also criticized any program for forgiving student loans. Project 2025 encourages the future president to ensure that any research conducted with uh, taxpayer dollars serve the national interest in a concrete way in line with conservative principles. For example, research of climatology should receive considerably less funding in line with Project 2025's views on climate change. So there you have that. Another policy, the expansion of presidential powers. Project 2025 proposes that all departments of state employees and leadership roles should be dismissed by the end of January 2025. It calls for installing senior State Department leaders in acting roles that do not require Senate confirmation. If Project 2025 were to be implemented, congressional approval would not be required for the sale of military equipment and ammunition to a foreign nation unless unanimous congressional support is guaranteed. Donald Trump, the assumed candidate for the Republican Party, said back in 2019 when he was running for his first term before he was elected that basically the Constitution grants him to do the right, grants him the right to do whatever he wants to do as president. This is a common claim among supporters of the executive theory. Similarly, in 2018, Donald Trump claimed that he could fire special counsel Robert Mueller. Trump is not the first president to consider policies related to this executive theory. The idea has seen a resurgence and popularized within the Republican Party since 9/11. That's when all that kind of changed, when they wanted to give all the power to George W. So yeah, there's that. And another standout is your healthcare and the public health issue. Project 2025 accused the Biden administration of undermining the traditional nuclear family and wants to reform the Department of Health and Human Services to promote its household structure. According to Project 2025, the federal government should prohibit Medicare from negotiating drug prices and promote the Medicare Advantage program, which consists of private insurance plans. Federal healthcare providers should deny gender affirming care to transgender people and eliminate insurance coverage of the morning after pill, as required by the Affordable Care Act, or as everybody like to call Obamacare. Project 2025 also suggests a number of ways to cut funding to Medicaid, such as a cap on federal funding, limiting on lifetime benefits per capita, and letting state governments impose stricter work requirements for beneficiaries of this program. Other proposals include limiting state use of provider taxes, eliminating pre-existing federal beneficiary protections and requirements, increasing eligibility determinations, and assess test determinations to make it harder to enroll in, apply for, and renew Medicaid, providing an option to turn Medicaid into a voucher program, and eliminating federal oversight of state Medicaid programs. Project 2025 aims to dramatically reform the National Institute of Health to make it easier to fire employees and to remove DEI programs, which I said before is diversity, equality, and inclusion programs. Conservatives consider the National Institute of Health corrupt and politically biased. Project 2025 accuses social media networks directly naming Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok of jeopardizing young Americans' mental health and social ties by creating a form of addiction. Federal policies cannot allow this to continue, the what it says in the proposal. Moving on to another goodie, and it is the issues of identity. Project 2025 attacks what it's called a radical gender ideology and promotes the idea that the government should mandate a biblical based social science reinforcement definition of marriage and family. To achieve this, it proposes ending same sex marriage, removing protections against discrimination on the basis of sexual or gender identity, and eliminating provisions pertaining to diversity, equality, and inclusion. What it calls state sanctioned racism from federal litigation. Federal employees who have participated in DEI programs or any incentives, including critical race theory, would be fired. Public school teachers who want to use transgender students' preferred pronouns would have to obtain their parents' written permission. Project 2025's backers also want to target the private sector by reversing the DEI revolution in labor policy in favor of more race-neutral regulations. Project 2025 is part of the intensifying backlash against DEI in the early 2020s. The White House Gender Policy Council would be disbanded. Government agencies would be forbidden from instituting quotas and collecting statistics on gender, race, or ethnicity. Project contributor Jonathan Berry explains in a quote, the goal here is to move towards color blindness and to recognize that we need to have laws and policies that treat people like full human beings, not reducible to categories, especially when it comes to race. The U.S. Census Bureau would be reformed according to the conservative principles. This is so ridiculous. I don't know. I don't care what your feelings are towards that community. Come on, man. This is stupid. That's the only adjective I have to describe this entire proposal. Now, I don't think this is going to go through. I really don't. But it's like, why is this even in consideration? That's the scary part. Before we get out of here, we got a couple of more I want to go over because they are important, and especially this next one. Pornography. Pornography. In the foreword of the Project 2025's mandate, Kevin Roberts argued that pornography promotes sexual deviancy and sexualization of children and the exploitation of women. Now, all that is true. All that is true. I don't know about the promotion of deviancy. Whether you watch porn or not, if you're a sexual deviant, you're a sexual deviant. Yeah, it does sexualize kitty porn and all that stuff, but that's just sick people out there. But anyway, getting back to this, it isn't protected by the First Amendment in the Constitution, and it should be banned, according to Kevin Roberts. He recommends the criminal persecution of people and companies producing pornography, which he compares to addictive drugs. Previously, the Supreme Court has ruled against attempts to ban pornography on the First Amendment grounds. When the Republican Party nominated himself for president in 2016, Donald Trump signed a pledge to examine the public health impact of internet pornography on youth, families, and the American culture. He did not fulfill that promise, shockingly enough, for reasons. Well, one of the reasons, despite his affairs, Trump was accused and convicted of having a affair with an adult film star, Stormy Daniels, as we all know. So, can you say hypocrite here? just throwing it out there. But yeah, that's an issue. That's an issue for people. Now, I ain't saying it's not a problem. I'm not saying it's trivial. But I mean, there are bigger issues going on in this country than some 16-year-old kid watching porn, doing you know what in the bathroom. The other issue, which is probably the biggest issue, not only in this proposal, but just politically overall, and that is the reproductive issue, the abortion issue. And of course, is addressed in this proposal. Project 2025 proponents maintain that life begins at conception. And a lot of Republicans, a lot of conservatives have that thought. Can't argue it too much. I'm not a woman, so I don't deal with the abortion thing. You know, that's not me. You know, now I do have two daughters who I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen, but that's something they have to answer for. But as far as the issue of when life begins, I will say this, and I'm gonna move on with the thing. I will say this. I believe a woman has a right to choose. I don't 100% agree with abortion, but I do 100% believe that a woman has a right to choose, if that makes any sense. And so that's that's my stance on that. It as far as the where it begins thing, if you plant a seed in the ground to grow whatever, the vegetables, a tree, whatever the case, that seed is the light. That's the seed. You know, that's what starts it. And so with that same frame of mind, you can have that same frame of mind when it comes to the conception of a child. But regardless of all that, I still believe what I believe. And I believe that a woman has their right. That's their right. Whether it's right or wrong, that's on that individual woman's uh 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 plate. So that's that with me. I never understood the whole. I'm not even going to run down what they say here. I'm just going to say all this and move on because I know this is a touchy subject. But I don't think the government has that right to control a woman's body. I don't think they have the right to control a man's body. But that's never on the ballot, But it is for a woman, and it's not fair. It's not right. It's their choice. And honestly, it's their choice. But those are just a few of the policies. I didn't want to. It's like a 900-page thing, and that wasn't going to happen. I wasn't about to sit down and go through it all, but I just wanted to cherry pick some of the things that are big issues that I think affects everybody. And there's so much more, and you can research it just like I did. Google is a beautiful thing, and research it and find out as much as you can about this issue. Not only this, but also Agenda 47 and any other policies, whatever Biden got, because I'm pretty sure you can poke holes in that as well. I know I could, because there's a lot I don't agree with Biden. It's a way lot more that I don't agree with when it comes to Trump. And so it's basically pros and cons. You writing a list, which one you're gonna rock with. But overall, this is kind of a ridiculous thing to me. And if this was ever to get passed, do you realize that we're basically going back to the Jim Crow era? We're actually going back to the times where this country is separated, man. It's we're going back to the Civil War ages. It's like North and South. And it's why? Why? What is? How is this affecting these people who came up with this? All these issues. How is that affecting you? Why is it affecting you that that there's more diversity in the job market, that there's more opportunities for people of color, for people of in the LGBTQ community and all these other communities? Why is that affecting you? You still are wealthy. These are wealthy people that are coming up with this. This doesn't bother them. This doesn't affect them. This doesn't take a dollar out their pocket. Well, it probably does, but they don't see it. They don't feel it. I just feel this is a dangerous thing that's on the docket. Now, like I said, it would take an act of God for this to actually get passed and implemented in this country. But it's disturbing that this is here. It's actually here to be considered as something to be implemented in this country. And that's the scary part. And so the whole purpose of this show was to talk about this and for you to do your research and also do the research as to who is linked up with these policies. Because we all know who's running for president. It's down to two people. They got more candidates, but they don't have a snowball's chance. So I'm not even worried about them. But as far as those two, you know who they are. But the ones you really need to pay attention to, the ones you need to keep an eye on, would be the House of Representatives, would be your senators. That's who you look at. Those are the main focal points, at least for me. I never really worried with the president. Yeah, he got my vote, whoever it was. Sometimes pick the right one. Well, sometimes I pick the one and one, sometimes I didn't. But at the same time, uh, they're just a figurehead. The way I look at it, they're not really the dictator. It's not a dictatorship. It really comes down to the House and the Senate, and those are the pieces you really need to do your research on and get the right people in place there, because they affect what the president does. And so, yeah, Project 2025. Uh, do more research. Go print it out. Stick it on your refrigerator so you wouldn't forget. Not all 900 pages of it, but just put a sticker or a post-it note, and so you won't forget about Project 2025 when you go to the voting booth in November. Very important. We are voting for our lives, and we vote for our lives every time an election come up. I don't care if it's the dog catcher or the president. It's important that we vote. What do you think about this proposal? Does it sound utterly ridiculous to you? And if it doesn't, I know normally I like to hear from both sides, whether you agree or disagree with everything I said. If you are with this, or if you are 100% strapped down, 10 toes down on this Project 2025, I would rather you not comment, because there's really nothing you can say that will ease my mind, that will make me think that you are somebody who is thinking intelligently about the future of this country and of this planet overall. It's scary to think that, but I will pray for you. I'm definitely going to pray for you. But I would still love to know your thoughts. I'm joking. I would love to know your thoughts. Because you're going to tell them anyway if you disagree. I have received cursed out email, comments and stuff like that, so it's all good. KB Radio Podcast at gmail.com. You could also search for this show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Also, don't forget about subscribing to the KB Radio Network channel on YouTube and liking this video if you don't mind. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to movie goodness here on the KB Radio Network without a movie review today. But we will have our regularly scheduled programming next week when we review some movie. Actually, next week a big one. So stay tuned for that. But I want you all to know that I love you. Continue to love everyone. And until we speak again, you all be blessed.